I'm so sorry. Eddie hit the wrong button. I'm so sorry. That is for a completely different live stream. Holy cow, if anything could have gone wrong, that was it. We were running around at the last minute. I'm not going to lie. I had to get milk for my tea, and I was putting my tea bag in the, we were running the last minute. I don't know what happened. So that was wild. I'm glad I was able to stop it ahead of time. So sorry for that wild intro. So, anyways, the whole thing about this stream, I'm going on a limb today. Nobody made this prediction that the housing market is going to be dead in the summertime. The thing is that very rarely will I ever pull out my crystal ball and give you my predictions. And I'm telling you, from everybody that I'm talking to, everybody I'm listening to, if like they'll say everything's great, blah, 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 blah. But, between you and me, they do this kind of thing. And there's several reasons why they think that the summer season is going to be interesting. One of them, I don't know if you guys have seen the what's been going on in the bonds market. And remember me telling you this is that several people had told me that they thought interest rates were going to go down. People that are much smarter than me that said the interest rates are going to go down because what happens is when there's fluctuation in the stock market, that a lot of people take their money from the stock market and they invest it in something safer like a bonds market. And that was happening for a period of time. But what they didn't account for is a lot of the bonds market is heavily invested in foreign entities as well. And we saw it happen this week. Several of these foreign entities no longer feel safe with their money being parked in bonds, and they pulled it out. And sure enough, the bonds market is going up. I think the last time I saw it was either on Friday or Saturday. It was 4.5. And if we reach up into the 5 range on that, we're going to see interest rates hitting into the 10s. Is that going to happen? Unknown. Everything is so unknown because everything changes so quickly recently. But if we see it there, this is why I'm saying that it's going to be Deadsville. If we see interest rates even go up even higher, I think it's already in the 7s. If we see it into the 8s and 9s, that's going to make people that were sitting on the fence sit on the fence even longer. And then sellers that are going to have to sell are going to get into a situation where either A, they're going to pull it off the market because they have a low interest mortgage, or B, they're going to get desperate and they're going to start dropping the prices of their house, which could be a good thing, except for the fact that there's so much uncertainty. There's so many people right now that are they're deciding not to take vacations. They don't know, if they're going to have a job next week. They just feel uneasy. And what dictates a market in any market is how the consumers feel, the customer sentiment. And the customer sentiment right now is too much uncertainty, so they're going to sit on the fence. So that's one thing. Another thing that I was watching, CNN popped up on my news feed on TikTok. And Eddie, if you wouldn't mind, can you play that clip if you can find it? If not, I will pull it up for you. I'll have to jump into the other side. But there was a clip by CNN. It was, I think, what's that guy's name? Jack Draper. I don't know his name. Anyways, so it was the leader of the NAHB. And he is going on about how he was very miffed, not very happy on the fact of all these tariffs. And his reasoning for it was, first, he said, if these tariffs continue to go the way that they are, even though there's a 10% increase across the board, he says that means that the homes that they will be building will cause more of a problem for affordability. He said that out of one side of his mouth. And as he's talking about how it'd be more expensive to build houses for affordability, which we all know that home builders are not building houses for affordability. Give me a freaking break. He stops himself and says, but the other thing that that is so crucial to affordability is the interest rates. And if the interest rates continue to go the way that they are, we're in big trouble. We're going to be holding on to stock. And he's like, affordability is tied to interest rates, which I always there is some truth to that. But when your house is already, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house, and it's already $500,000 in the middle of San Antonio, it doesn't matter how low it is. Most people can't afford a $500,000 house, even if, and then you add a 10% on top of it. Oh, what? They're going to have to take a hit. Some of the smaller builders are the ones I feel bad for, but these bigger builders have got a huge spread. They've been buying up supplies they have warehouses full of supplies. These tariffs, don't get me wrong, will affect them in a way, but they're not going to be hurting as much as the little guy. So I think this is what I believe, that spring is going to be slow moving and summer is going to be Deadsville. I don't think anything's going to move. I think people are going to be staying where they're at, but I could be wrong. This is very rare, very rare. I can honestly tell you there's only been twice in my career on YouTube that I've made any kind of prediction. And this right here is like, it's one of those things. I sit there and I read these articles and I'm like, the housing market is so screwed. Like I just can't see it any other way. Sellers are going to be stuck. Buyers are going to be stuck. Home prices are going to be sticky because nothing's moving. So they can't adjust it unless there is more problems with the people working and losing their jobs. If we see a lot more people losing their jobs, then you'll start to see the home prices come down because people will be in a more desperate situation to get their house sold. So they'll mark it down. Where we won't see as many what do they call them? Short sales, and foreclosures are more likely than short sales, because unless they bought in like 2023 or 2024 that they would have to deal with that, the likelihood is pretty slim. But if you want to know who's buying houses still and is the number one buyer, guess who the number one buyer is. I know you're going to be so shocked. The age range of a buyer, let's just give them a name. Who do you think's buying the most homes? It's also this class of people that have the most money. So it'll be really easy for you to give your little 2 cents there. Oh, who do you think's buying the most? This is how late I was running, by the way. I'm like shaking. I was running so late I hadn't even finished making my tea. So you're going to guys watch me make my tea. And this is how messed up it was. I grabbed the wrong spoon. This is the spoon I was eating my lunch with, and it had pho on it. So my tea smells like pho. Yep, boomers. You're right. The boomers. And they've been the number one buyers for the last 10 years. You would think poor Gen X, man, smallest generation, they never can catch up. Poor Gen X, they never can catch up. Boomers are still the number one. They just keep buying. They got the money and they're buying. Unbelievable. The boomers, I feel sorry for, the ones that never really got a chance to buy a house, Boomers. Because now what are they going to do? With these prices and interest rates, unbelievable. Christopher John says, my plan is buying some land for a tiny home community, so sustainable, and live in the dream. Yep. The Villages has over 600 listings on the MLS, highest ever. Noreen, see, that's what I'm talking about. So that's where the boomers are, right? This is the biggest concentration of boomers that you've ever seen. Silent Gen and boomers have been in the Villages. It is a complete entire city in Florida, right? If they have 600 listings sitting right now, what is that saying? A lot of people are just not moving. Yep. Charlton says, I don't know. 2 houses are for sale near me. One for 290,000, 1,500 square feet. Second one is 446,000, 2,000 square feet. Ugh. There seems to be a price discrepancy there. The neighborhood, but I will say this, neighborhood, amenities, all those things matter. In my neighborhood, if you were to drive outside my neighborhood, next door, you could, the next neighborhood over, just a few houses up, you could buy a house for, I think, $200,000. But it's not like it was built a while ago. It's in a flood zone. It's, it's only 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. They don't have nearly as many amenities. All those things matter. Happy Palm Sunday, Debbie. Nice to see you. Eddie, if you're looking for that video that I was telling you, it's on my desktop. It says like news story CNN, and it will say like story 1 or part 1 and part 2. If you look in the downloads folder, I knew I should have uploaded it. This tastes just like this tea is so gross.
Tariffs, what would you say?
Well, I would say that I understand that what you're trying to do is to be able to even the playing field across the world to be able to make trade more beneficial to the United States citizen. And I get that. At the same time, I really want you to focus on what's going on in the housing industry to make sure that none of those tariffs have an impact on our ability to be able to put affordable homes on the ground. Because right now, that's the biggest issue, is housing affordability. And the biggest issue that we're facing right now that goes along with that is the interest rates that, the consumers are having to pay.
Okay. So he was like, oh, well, like deep down in my heart, it's like we have to really worry about affordability. No, what he's really worried about is the fact that he's going to have to charge more and he's not going to find enough clients to fill that gap, right? He knows that, like, even if they were to charge more, because he says it's right out of the gate, right? If they have to charge more because the house costs more, you better keep those interest rates down low so we can get this supply of houses off the market. Because he's like, well, it's because I care about affordability. No, if they cared about affordability, they would build houses that were conducive to what affordable housing should be. Like, I get it that he's running a business, but let's be realistic. So if you can find the second one, I think it says news story part 2, CNN. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I think I'm pretty cool too. Cooler than the other side of the pillow. I kill me. I think I'm hysterical. This has to be the worst tasting tea on the planet. It actually, I don't know if you can see it, but it has like a film on top of it from the I was eating. This spoon, I grabbed the wrong spoon and dunked that thing right in there.
I'm trying to find the second one. Cannot find it. I only found the first one.
Oh, well, the second half is him whining on the fact of interest rates and how he thinks that they need to work on mortgage interest rates and figure out how to get those down. We all know how to get those down. Yeah, we know how to get those down, but if people continue to sell off their bonds, we're going to be in deep dooku, poo-poo, dookie. I have to censor myself.
An escalation in prices across the board, inflation increases. That means the Fed's not going to cut the rates, and then that means less consumers are going to be able to afford a mortgage. So the idea here is for us to get interest rates to start coming down. That would bring more people into the market to be able to afford homes, because it does come down to a monthly payment for a lot of people, and that's part of the interest rate and their mortgage payment.
So he's talking on both sides of his mouth. He's saying, oh, we want to build affordable houses, but we really need you to get those interest rates down because people are payment sensitive. So if those interest rates are really low, it doesn't matter how high our houses are, as long as that interest rate is low, because their monthly payment will be low. A few things, if you're looking at new construction, that I need you to be aware of. First off is that in a lot of cases, when you buy a brand new house, you're like brand new. No, the grass has just been freshly put in. And that first year that you pay your property taxes, it's very minimal. It's very minimal. So let's just say your payment was $1,000, right? And you pay that whole entire year $1,000. Then your escrows come in, and your mortgage company says your escrows were short for your property taxes. You're now going to have to pay an additional $3,000 to make up for the shortage and for next year's property taxes, because that's the estimate for next year. And a lot of people don't have an extra $3,000 coming, like they just don't have it. One I saw, it was almost $10,000. They had to come up with $10,000 out of their own pocket to make up for the shortage. So if you're buying a brand new house, be aware that first year in a lot of states, that property and taxes are not assessed. They're only assessed for the land, not for the structure itself. So you'll have to have extra money for escrows for the next following year. Just be aware of that. So Tony says, went on went on listing runs with a buyer in Chicago suburbs, and the open houses were full of people in these different homes we saw yesterday. Well, that's fantastic news. Now, I will say that the Northeast has it a lot easier than, let's just say, the South. And you know that as well as I do, Tony, is that, the Northeast, first of all, has a compaction of houses in areas, right? And they don't have as much room to expand. But you get into the South, we got land for days. And then whenever there is a building boom, they build to the nines. They just keep building and building and building. Like Austin, Texas has lots of new construction in their area because that was the hot town, right? And now they're seeing that adjustment. And Florida has always been guilty of this. Every time that there's a real estate boom, they just build and build and build. They build everything. And then when it starts to dial back, they're the first ones to go like hit the road, and all of a sudden the prices come down. Phoenix, Arizona is another one. They build because there's a housing boom. They have tons of new construction. Then when things start leveling off, then all of a sudden they see the biggest decreases in prices. Boise, Idaho is another one that had a ton of boom, which blew my mind. I had no idea that people were moving there, but apparently has a ton of industry out there. And now they're seeing more price adjustments because of the fact of they had a lot of new construction. I told you guys, I've said this a gazillion times. If your area has a lot of new construction, you're more likely to see a reduction of sales price than the areas that do not have a lot of new construction. Now, in my area, we had a lot of new construction. And do you know what home builders are doing right now? They're not building single family homes right now. They're not. They're building for corporations that want build to rent housing. So we have a ton of like townhomes, multifamily units, even some neighborhoods, but none of them are for the individual buyer. They're building for those big investors. They're prepping this area to be a build to rent area. And a lot of other areas are like that as well. I know that I've seen it and I've heard it from other people that are in Atlanta. I don't have Clark the Realtor in here, but he said that there's lots of build to rent. I know in Phoenix, Arizona, there's lots of build to rent. So the builders aren't slowing down. They're going to continue to build. They're just not going to be building for the individual buyer. They're going to be building for these big investors, and those investors are going to turn those into build to rent. So Pete says Central Florida's houses are flying off the market. Back in my day, right before the last, this was in 2007. Eddie and I were young bucks. We had teeny tiny little kids. And I said to my husband, I'm like, this is weird. That for sale sign is in the yard for more than 3 weeks. And it's very similar to our house. And then sure enough, then we saw 2 more signs. Then we saw 5 more signs. And I looked at my husband and I said, if we have any chance of getting out of Florida, it's right now. We got to figure out a way to get out of here. Find anywhere to get a job. Find anywhere. I don't care. And so he did. And we put our house on the market and we sold it. And that was right before the last crash. We got out in the nick of time before houses. That poor guy who bought our house, he bought our house for, I think, $235. And then it went all the way down to $165. It went all the way down there. And then he had to refinance or restructure his loan. It almost took 10 years to gain all that equity back into the house. I'm just saying, whenever I have a feeling about something, a strong enough feeling, I can't help myself and I have to voice it. I could be 1000% dead wrong, and I will be the first to admit it. But I think that this summer is going to be Deadsville. The NAHB spokesperson has to make the builders look like the victims. Eddie, I want you to pull that letter up from the NAHB to the administration that they put out whenever the tariffs came out. I think it's the second tab over. The poor home builders. Yes. So this was a letter that they wrote to the Trump administration on January 31st. 11 days after he was in office. And he said, our country is facing a severe housing shortage and affordability crisis, which you recognize on your first day in office. By issuing an executive order that seeks increasing the housing supply and affordability, bringing down the cost of building will require a coordinated effort to remove obstacles to construction, they being regulatory, labor, supply chain related. The National Association of Home Builders stands ready to work with and accomplish these goals. However, we have some serious concerns that proposed 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico will do the opposite effect by slowing down the domestic residential construction industry. So they like let's just get down to the last paragraph. It says the NAHB's members understand you have a larger, well-intended policy goals in mind, considering the holistic trade policy. However, we respectfully ask that you consider the effects on tariffs on Americans struggling to afford a housing, that you exempt critical construction materials from your actions. We look forward to working with you to create jobs and boost our economy and provide a safe and affordable housing for all Americans. Yeah. There was no response to that letter, by the way. There was no response to that letter. And the whole thing is that a lot of people have been saying like, well, we don't need Canada. We don't need the Canada. Yeah, we do. We get all of our soft lumber from there. And people say, well, they're going to go ahead and privatize the national parks and we can get our lumber from there. We don't have enough. It would be a very short-term solution to our problem. We don't have enough of the right kind of lumber that is required to build housing, period. Just don't have enough. So, I mean, a good majority of Canada is not where people live. And it has better resources for soft lumber that we need for building houses. And it doesn't matter what kind of house, whether that's a tiny home, a modular home, a traditional stick-built home, even your manufactured mobile homes, same thing. We just need it. And the idea that we can just have it here, just strip all the national parks for the lumber, it wouldn't even last enough. Don't have enough. Tony says, but definitely not a lot of real buyers out there looking but can't buy. Well, I will say this, Tony, there are people that are genuinely want to buy, but the idea of the traditional 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in their local area is just totally unattainable. You couple the fact that they both have good paying jobs, they have good credit, and they may even have a down payment, but there's nothing in their area that's affordable. So, I mean, that's why I do a lot of videos on different types of housing solutions. It may not be the best solution in your brain, what you wanted for your very first house, but at least it's something affordable that you can have for yourself and you're not renting anymore. And then later on, you can use that piece of property as a rental unit, or you can use it for Airbnbs. You use that as like an income producing property. Again, it's not something that most people love the idea of, but it's a stepping stone and you're not throwing away rent. Debbie says, the last time they lowered housing interest rates, we had a huge increase in the price of houses. Well, there was multiple reasons for that too, Debbie, right? The reason why, holy cow, there's somebody coming in the door. Uh-oh. We got a better tasting tea. He knows. Forgive me. My pho tasting tea is now gone. Thank you, Eduardo. All right. So the last time we saw the huge price increases because the demand of housing was like triple-fold. The interest rates were kept low for too long. There's no debate about that. And that caused a huge rush on housing. A lot of home builders, when the pandemic started, had a fear that we were going to hit a different kind of housing crisis. So a lot of them had slowed down, if not halted, building houses. So that caused the supply of homes in a lot of areas to get really tight very quickly. And then there was like this fever pitch. Again, you remember how we were talking about how people feel, right? They felt like if they didn't get in now, they would never be able to get into a house. So there were people that were making offers on houses that were absolutely ridiculous because they felt like this was the lowest price and the lowest interest rate they'll ever get. So they were willing to either A, buy a house they didn't really necessarily love, or B, they were willing to go way over asking price just to win that bid. Then on top of it all, we had a lot of institutional investors, especially in those big city areas, that were like, we'll just buy it cash. Whatever, we'll do that. So that just compounded that problem. And then the housing prices were just going up. I mean, you saw it in the papers and on advertising, 10,000, 20,000. Some houses over here were over $50,000 over asking price. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, come on. Come on. And then I'm wondering where all the people are getting all this damn money from. Apparently the boomers. Apparently. But I was like, are they hiding under their mattress? Like I couldn't believe how many people were like, yeah, well, we'll go over. I mean, we could do 30,000 over asking price. I'm like, 2 years ago, people were like, well, I don't know if I can pay for a home inspection. But these people were like, oh yeah, I got $30,000 that we can go over asking price. It was just mayhem, right? Because the supply was so crazy, and people were so amped, like they were just ready to go. And that feeling, that urgency to get into a house today is not there like it was whenever the pandemic was going on. What is pho? Oh, like it's like a soup, right? It's a Vietnamese soup. I might be saying it wrong. I think it's phog. It's PHO. If I'm saying it incorrectly, please, my Vietnamese viewers, please correct me, because I'm not trying to be offensive. When I look at it, it just says pho to me. So I know it's like pho, I think. And it's like, it's got star of anise in it and onions and stuff. And it does not necessarily make your tea taste very good. I don't know if you guys seen this phone number up here. Yes, thank you, Eddie. There's a phone number up here in the corner, and that phone number, you can leave a message for me, and you'll get the AI Kristina robot. She'll ask you a question, where you're calling from, what's your name, and then you can ask your question. Sometimes she'll answer you, but all the same, I take that recording, I cut it up and leave your question on here, and then we'll answer it next week on the live stream. So if you guys want to call in, we didn't have any calls this week, but Eddie wanted to go ahead and remind you that that is possible. Future for Atlanta. I think that it's going to be Deadsville. I mean, I could be wrong. I think my area of Baton Rouge is going to be Deadsville. I think we're in hot water. I do. I think I'm thinking mostly the South. The South is going to get Deadsville. Humble but right. Says inventory here in Tennessee is way up. Sales are down, but prices are staying high. Not wishing hardship on builders, but a correction has to happen. I never want to see what happened in 2008 ever again. I saw so many families that were promised a lot of stuff. Some people got into interest-only loans because a lender told them to. Even Eddie and I, when we refinanced our house, got boned by a lender because they lied. That same lender ended up going to prison for predatory lending practices. Who knew? Who knew? But yeah, I think there is going to be some adjustments that need to happen. I just don't want people to have to suffer to make that adjustment happen. The best solution to me would be there would be an even supply of houses that hit the market, and homes would level out in cost. A lot of people that are like, oh, I lost $200,000 on my house, but you've been living in the house for 40 years. Did you really lose 200,000? No, it was like fake equity that built up over time, and now it's leveling out. I mean, to me, that isn't a hardship, that's just, the market adjusting. But the people that lose everything, because they bought a house for their family, and then the insurance rates go up, and the property taxes go up, and then all of a sudden you get a letter in the mail and FEMA's telling you need flood insurance, and their payment that was only $2,000 is now $3,200. Those are the people I feel sorry for. There's a lot more people that, like in our area, that live closer to the coast. Because of the fact of the insurance rates going up, they can't afford their monthly payment anymore. So they have to go ahead and sell. That's very common. So, oh, thank you. You pronounced it perfect. Thank you. I tried. I tried. I love it. It's one of those things. I probably have it about 6 times a month. I love it so much. The rare steak one. So good. And I never put any I don't even put any hoisin sauce, or maybe occasional I'll put some of the hot sauce in there, but I just like it. Like with the broth is good, man. I will drink it. Mona says, I bought a house in 2022. I don't think my realtor did specs right. And now we pay about 40K over, but we did get a 5% rate. Cannot sell it for a while. I wonder where you're at, Mona. What area are you in? And I also want to know, did you buy it cash? Because there should be an appraisal process. And the appraiser usually determines the value as well. Rhonda K says, you see a major slowdown this summer. What does that mean for potential buyers? This is a great question, Rhonda. Great question. So I say if you are financially stable and you're not worried about the possibility of your job laying you off, I would say that there's opportunities out there for you as a home buyer to get some deals, because the sellers are reading the same headlines as the buyers. So this is a great time to test the market. Sellers like to test the market and price their houses incredibly too high. A lot of them do. And you'll see them. They'll be like, why is that house for sale for that much money? Right? It's been on forever. But if you can find sellers during this time that are in a situation where they have to move fast because of their job is moving them out, of the area, or they, like they need to move for family reasons. This is a perfect time to start testing those offers that are a little not over asking prices. Now, listen to your local real estate agent. If she says that the houses are still flying off the market and you put in an offer that's below market value and you get rejected a couple times, she ain't lying to you, or he's not lying to you. Don't do that. But if you're in an area, ask what's really going on. If there's the availability for you to make an offer. And if you feel like they're not being truthful, make your offer anyway. Make your offer anyway. The worst that can happen is they say no. The second worst thing that can happen is they counter offer. And that's the two worst things that can happen. At least you get a counter offer. And who knows? What if they accept and then you get everything you wanted? You never know. Wes says the American dream is now the American renter by design or corporate greed. Wes, it's so funny that you say that, because I literally start my video for this Tuesday evening. It literally starts off as that the vision of the American dream of the 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with the white picket fence, that may be dead, but there's other ways to step into the American dream. It doesn't look the way that I bought my first house. It doesn't look the way that my parents bought their house, but it can look completely different. And you don't have to buy into the American greed is going to take over everything. We just have to think about it a little bit differently. It takes a little bit more elbow grease, a little bit more sweat equity and envisionment. And it's not, like people say, younger people just need to bring down their expectations. That's literal horse crap, and you know it. It's not about expectations. It's that there's nothing there in their price range. But if you were to buy a raw piece of land and work on that piece of land over time, building those improvements, then put either a tiny home or a small manufactured home or even a small modular home on that piece of property, and then build up the equity in that, and then over time you could go ahead and get a mortgage where you roll in the land in with the dream house that you always wanted, that 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with the white picket fence. That's something you can do over time. It's not what we envisioned for our kids, but at least they're not freaking renting from a corporate stupid landlord that's going to keep raising their rents, and they're in control of everything. And they all work together too. They know exactly what they're doing. They know how high they can push the rent in the area, because they work with one another, telling them, hey, we're going to push it up this high. You need to push yours up too. They got caught in it. They got stone cold busted. They were supposed to be taken to court, but that has been put to the wayside. But they have been colluding with one another to keep those rent prices high. Sucks. Mark says, question. I have a hard time getting quotes to install my manufactured home on my lot in northern Arizona. Could I be my own owner builder, and just ask for the install? Is that risky? I would contact the local manufacturing. So you have a state manufacturing. There's a manufacturing board that's in that area. Like ours is, we have a state manufacturing board. Most states do. If you have a problem with your manufactured home, or you have anything that goes on with your manufactured home, you contact them, like something with your warranty. I would tell you to contact them and ask them what the best route is for you. You could save a lot of money that way, but you have to know what you're doing as far as like leveling out that piece of property to make sure it's right. You have to know how to make sure that it's in the right meets and bounds. Your frontage has to be so many feet away from certain areas. Like there's a lot of little moving parts in there that, I mean, yes, technically you could do it. Absolutely. But make sure that you know what you're doing when you do that. Because, you know, who you're going to yell at if it isn't right? Just yourself. I'm always a big fan of that because then I'm like, well, I did it. It's my fault. You know, I'm a fan of that, but I'm not sure if you want to take that on. V-Man says, question, how does the country know you have refinanced? Oh, how does the county know that you refinanced your home? Did they get a report from the lender or even a new purchase? Or is this how our property taxes go up? So every time you refinance your home, like here in where I live, it shows up in the property records. Like I can see it on my property records when it was refinanced, because the mortgage company has to call into the tax assessor's office to make sure that the bill is sent to them so they know that it's being paid and paid on time, or if it's coming on your mortgage, they're paying it and paying it on time. So that's when they know that you refinance. It's part of your tax assessor's log. Yeah, I agree with you. The Northeast isn't going to have nearly as many problems as like some areas within the West, and then you know, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, all around the coastline, all the way through Florida, some areas of Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina. Those are the areas that are going to see an adjustment, a little reality check. Charlton says, must be nice to have a manservant. He's being nice to me because he got a new dog. That's why he's got Buddy. And you're going to have to show them the picture of Buddy. Debbie Brady says, special thanks to our fearless executive producer, Eddie Smallhorn, to hand deliver replacement for Kristina's much needed tea. You know, if you haven't yet, this is a perfect time to beat those tariffs. If there's anything that you particularly love, go ahead and buy it ahead of time. That's what I did. I bought, people thought last week, I have a huge like duffel bag size container of now hot tea bags. Yep. And Fox says, do you think that capital gains will decrease? There is a lot of movement saying that could be a possibility. I mean, there's bills out there all the time that they are always trying to adjust capital gains. I would love for that to happen. I would be game on. Let's fix this. Let's fix the capital gains because it's kind of stupid. The amount of tax that we're taxed on the tax that we've already been taxed. Dumb. And God forbid you get an inheritance, then you're taxed on that tax that they've already paid the tax on. Who makes up these rules? Who's on first says, does the lack of lumber mean an opening for alternative building materials, more brick, cement, metal, 3D recycled materials, building blocks, etc., alternative materials? Good thought, right? But cement doesn't necessarily come from the United States. Brick doesn't come from the United States either. And 3D printed houses, all of those materials and components are mixed. There's different, like there's lime and all other materials, including cement, that's mixed into those 3D printed houses. And a lot of them come from different areas. So it isn't just one ingredient that goes in that we could produce here. A lot of the raw materials come from other countries. So I would love the fact that if we would allow for more alternative methods, but what happens is, and everybody will tell you this, is that when you come up with a really good idea for alternative building method, somebody along the way will say, absolutely not. You know, like cob houses, yurts, anything like that. There's always some they call them NIMBYs, not my backyard people, that will say, absolutely not. We're not going to have it in our area. Even in the most rural area, there is a couple that I follow on TikTok, and their account name is Can't Contain Us. They bought a rural piece of property in the middle of Missouri. Like there's acres between houses, acres, and they put in a container home. And you would have thought they put in like the worst looking thing in the whole entire world. And the whole entire area were fighting against them, but they had gotten it approved ahead of time. It got so bad that this poor girl, she was a real estate agent, and they harassed her at her place of business, and they had to let her go because of all that, because it was just too much exposure, for negative exposure for her real estate company. I mean, just ridiculousness for a container home. And then they made it, and it's still there, and it's absolutely beautiful. Everything they've done has been on the up and up, but they've had to fight it every step of the way because some neighbors got ticked. It doesn't matter. You really have to. You have to really find areas that'll allow for it. Recreational land is probably the easiest thing if you're going to do any kind of alternative housing, but that would make it the easiest. Not necessarily not difficult, but it still would make it the easiest. Vanessa says, I think, unfortunately, if you were not able to buy a home before now, it will now be nearly impossible with the tariffs. Maybe a new house, right? A new house will be more difficult because it will cost more. But that doesn't mean that people aren't willing to sell the house that they currently live in, right? And if they're in a situation where they have to move fast, like when Eddie and I were selling our house a gazillion years ago, and there were tons of houses on the market in Central Florida. And we were in a situation of, well, we have to move. Eddie got a job, and I don't want to be by myself with 2 young children. So we immediately started taking the price of our home down, another $5,000 here, another $5,000 here. I'll offer another $10,000 in closing costs to the buyer. And sure enough, we got one, so the availability of that happening is going to be easier, right? The people that are cash buyers are going to be in better shape. But if the cost of mortgages is higher, let's just say, and I'm giving a number out there, if the cost of mortgages is at let's say 10%, then you're not going to have a lot of home buyers out there willing to pay that price. The opportunity, though, is for some people is if they could transfer their mortgage over to the next person's name. So people that have like a VA loan, if they have like a 2.5%, they could go ahead and move that mortgage over to the new buyer. But you have to come up with the cash money of what the difference between the purchase price and what's left on the mortgage that the other seller had. So even though you're absorbing their new mortgage, you're still going to have to pay them out of pocket. There's going to be opportunities out there. You'll see. Yep. Look, that's Buddy. That is Eddie's new puppy, Buddy. And Eddie takes Buddy everywhere. And whenever he goes out, Eddie has to put Buddy in a very special shirt because, he's got to look handsome to visit all of his fans. Yep. Somebody said the true American dream has to be about practicality, affordability, delay gratification, and living within its means. Yes. And it should have been like that for a long time. I think the glorification of your first home being your dream home really came to the forefront when HGTV came out. Everybody and their brother was like, oh, we're going to have to have an open concept. Oh, we're going to have to do this. Oh, we're going to have to do that. And people wanted all of the bells and whistles from the get-go. I think that that happened quite a bit. But millennials are a lot smarter than people give them credit for. They are willing to take a house that kind of looks like poop, and they are willing to, put in the blood, sweat, and tears to bring it up to date. There's a big joke about millennial gray, the color millennial gray. I happen to like it myself, not to the degree that a lot of the builders went to, but they popularized that color, that gray, that neutral gray color. Beige went out the window, and millennials learned how to make that gray work. And there's going to be opportunities out there. Like I said, the first house or the first place you own may not be your dream home. And my first house certainly wasn't my dream home, but there is going to be some opportunities out there. What I'm saying as far as Deadsville, I just don't think there's going to be as many buyers out there if you see interest rates continue to climb the way that I think they're going to climb. And this is all me just, I told you, I don't make predictions. This is the one time that I'm like, I can't keep my mouth shut any further. Like, I always try to play Nancy neutral, but I don't think this is, my gut is telling me, just like it did in 07, we're going to be in the world of hurt soon. Greg says, question, what house prices correct? When house prices correct and go down, do rentals follow suit and drop? Sounds like they would. Depends on your area. So I would think that because a lot of people turned their grandma's house into like an Airbnb or a rental unit, and some of them are not going to have the ability to keep and maintain that. And you got to remember also that, speaking of Airbnbs, a lot of people bought houses just for Airbnbs, and people aren't traveling as much, so they're not using those Airbnbs as much. So a lot of times, yes, whenever you start seeing home prices, the rental prices in that area do adjust. We have a whole new ball of wax though, because like I said, a lot of these big time rental companies are colluding with one another to keep the status quo of rental prices. So we'll see what happens. But if they have enough vacancies, they'll start dropping prices. Yeah, they'll start dropping them. Rhonda says, thank you, Kristina. Retired. Would like to sell our condo in South Wisconsin. Southern Wisconsin. I don't have a with, but today I do. In Southern Wisconsin. Prices are still high. Resort area for Chicago buyers, their second home. We're considering Arkansas. You know what? I've told several people out there, Arkansas has some really beautiful areas. Like Eddie and I have traveled through there many times. I love the Ozarks of Arkansas. I know people are like, the Ozarks aren't in Arkansas. Yes, they are. And they're absolutely stunning. The Ozarks go all the way through Arkansas and Missouri. You know, they're connected, and it's absolutely stunning out there. There's some beautiful areas, and it's not nearly as pricey as some other southern states. You can find some good pieces of property out there. Snazzy Jazzy, love the screen name, Snazzy Jazzy. Question: I've heard of all-in-one loans, but don't exactly know how they work. Are there more affordable option? Are you talking about all-in-one loans, like where you buy the land, you get the improvements done to the land, then you get a new construction loan, and then it's all rolled in one? So you have this. What happens is you have a new construction loan that allows the home builder to take certain kinds of draws on the house. So once the land is prepared, the bank will give them the first draw, and then once they get all the building materials, then they get the second draw. Then once the drywall and sheetrock is up and the roofing is up, then they get another draw, and then the last draw happens on the day of closing. So you actually end up closing on two loans. You close out that first loan to roll it into the second loan, which is your 30-year fixed rate mortgage, and it happens all the time. That's how, like, if that's what you're talking about, it's an all-in-one loan. But you have to meet with the lender. You're going to have to meet with an appraiser, make sure the area will appraise for the type of home that you're going to get in that area, all those things. It takes a little bit more time too. Pete says, question: what happens to the foreclosed houses go back to the bank? How long does it take for them to sell it? Ooh, good question, Pete. So it depends on the area. So, and there's lots of things that can happen in the foreclosure process, because a lot of times when people are getting foreclosed on, they have other circumstances. So if you see a house and your neighbors are moving out in the middle of the night and they're like, yeah, we got foreclosed on. If they're going through the bankruptcy process as well, that can delay that house ever hitting the market, right? And then if during that time they're going through that bankruptcy process and the married couple are not getting along and they decide to get divorced, that brings that out even further. I tell this story many times, but there was a house right around the corner from us, and it was a stunning house with a swimming pool. And I mean, just absolutely beautiful. They tried to sell it. They tried to sell it at top dollar. It would not go through. Then they tried to sell it as a short sale, did not go through, end up getting foreclosed on. And then once the foreclosure process started, they filed bankruptcy, and then they went through divorce. And it took almost 11 years before it ever went back on the market. Do you know what a house that hasn't been touched in 11 years looks like and smells like? It ain't pretty. It ain't pretty. That bank lost a buttload of money. And you're going to see a lot more houses being bought before they were ever even hit the open market. As you know, investors will buy buckets of houses. So they'll go to the banks and they'll say, "Hey, I realize that you have a ton of foreclosures on your books. We'll buy 100 houses." So whatever that's on that 100 houses book list, they take them all, and then they'll either A, flip them, or B, rent them out, or that's what they do. So some of them you may never even see ever hit the market. Some other areas are really easy to get on the market. If it's just a standard foreclosed property, it can be as little as a year. It takes as little as a year. Just something to think about. It does take a time though, because like that whole process of them actually getting to foreclose, they have to go through the whole court system. And if they have a backlog, it takes time. One of my friends, her dad was in the foreclosure process forever. And it wasn't until like 10 and a half years later that they ended up getting to his house. But it was a whole weird thing. Charlton says, question, are developers need to be licensed by each state, or is there a national association? In most states, real estate developers are generally need to obtain a real estate license to legally engage in development activities. While some developers may choose to operate without a license, it's a good idea to consult with a legal professional to understand the specifics and requirements, potential implications in your jurisdiction. Thank you, Eduardo. You wanted me to sound professional. Yeah, I would say, yeah, check with your state. Absolutely. That's what I would have said. Eddie wants me to go ahead and remind you of next week. If you have a question of anything that we talked about, or you want to make a comment, you can leave a message on this answering service. It's a AI Kristina. She's a little rude. It's not actually me. It's just like a voice recording of me. And she'll ask you your name. She'll ask you where you're calling from. And then she'll ask you the question for the real estate live stream. And then next week I will put it on the show and you get to hear your voice and ask your question. Then we'll answer it live. Yep. Jose says the American dream was the vision of those who created the dream. Ain't that the truth? I know. Like sometimes I would like, when you're younger, you're so naive. And then when you start peeling the leaves of that onion and you start getting towards the center, you're like, man, this really stinks. We've been bamboozled. And sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow. I'm with you. Pete says, question, on a foreclosure sale, the property goes back to the bank. How long does it go? Eddie, I already answered this question. Eddie's not paying attention. He's playing with that puppy. Eddie's playing with that puppy. You should bring him. You know what? Everybody, you should tell Eddie to bring that baby to the camera and you guys could see that baby. The tariffs are temporary, not according to the administration. Debbie Brady says, Kristina, you're not old enough to say a gazillion years ago. Well, I feel that way. Yep. A gazillion years ago. I can say that. A gazillion years ago. A gazillion years ago when I had little tiny kids, they're all grown-ups now. I feel like if I have adult children, I can say a gazillion years ago. Eric the Blue says, my current home was as a studio condo was a simple choice. It was what I could afford at the time near my workplace. I got it just before the interest rates shot up in 2022. Well, fantastic. I have to ask you, Eric, since you have a condo, has your condo association dues gone up a lot? Because I know that a lot of areas, especially like in Florida, condo association dues have gone haywire. And it's mostly because of special assessments. Now, every condo association has a moment of a special assessment where they have to update some sidewalks to be ADA compliant, or they have to get a new roof, or, something needs to be addressed with some termite issue. But some of these people are getting bills for their special assessment that are like $30,000. In a lot of areas, like these are retirees that don't have $30,000 to give up, and they're in a bad situation. And in that situation, if they can't afford to pay them, the homeowners association can foreclose on those properties, and that's happening more and more. Those are the people I really feel sorry for, because that was a messed up situation. One building falls, and then it was a knee-jerk reaction to start sticking it to all these homeowners association at one time. They gave them such a limited amount of time to get those repairs, and it made the cost go straight to the homeowners. It's crazy. Who's on first says, thoughts on the increase in sales in areas where Fed workers have been fired, DC, etc., and tariffs are causing a pause in business expansion. Is this the start of the recession housing crash? Who's on first? Like I said at the beginning of the stream, I do not make predictions, but I'm telling my gut, my feeling is this summer is it's going to shake up the housing market. Will it be a full-on crash like we saw in 08, 09, 10? I can't tell you that, but I definitely think that we're going to see a lot of price adjustments, especially in the southern regions of this country. The Northeast isn't going to get it nearly as bad as like us here in Louisiana, Texas, Georgia, Florida. We're gonna see the biggest price adjustments. Ozarks has a couple of vacant lands for sale right now. Each lot is around $10,000. Both are riverfront. Look at that. See? Man, and it's beautiful out there. I have driven out there. I love it. I could easily live in the Ozarks. Easily. And the weather's nice. Occasionally you'll get some snow. Very, very, very occasionally, but not, something to look at.
I love the screen name, by the way.
Too legit to quit. Hey, too legit. What is it? Too legit. Wait, too legit to quit. Hey. I had to pull that out of the. that was way back when. I'm aging myself, Dad. That's it. Back in my day, we used to do that when we said too legit.
I just said I like the screen name. I didn't ask for the whole song.
Whatever. All right. Last call for voting in the poll, Debbie says. Have you voted yet? I want to hear what other people have to say. I'm interested because I put it out there. Do you think this summer is going to be a Deadsville? I want to know. Smoosh Star says yesterday, Logan Motasha. I'm not even going to try to say this last name. Motashami Housing Wire and Melanie Wright, CEO of Horgora, expect that housing will get crazy as far as like people are going to be paying more. People are already tight with their money. I guess if you have a lot of money, maybe it will be crazy for them, but like the cost of everything has gone up so much. A lot of people have retracted from making purchases that they normally would. I know many people that are like, we were thinking about vacationing this year, but with everything that's going on, I'm not gonna do that. We're gonna go maybe next year. We're gonna sit on this out this year. I think people are gonna be holding on to their cash flow a little bit more. That's what my gut says. Who's on first says, does Eddie wear a matching Hawaiian Friday shirt? Do you wear a matching shirt, Eddie? Do you even have a Hawaiian shirt? I don't think he has one. I want him to actually like show the actual live puppy. You can actually hear him barking in the background. I never show my animals. And if you guys don't know, I'm a big animal lover. I have 9 cats. Not all of the cats are mine. Three cats belong to one daughter. Another 3 cats belong to another daughter. So 6 don't actually belong to me. But in my house currently, there's 9 cats. And I have 3 dogs. So Alt Universe says Illinois may have avoided a huge home price increase, but please check the property taxes. Have seen homes approaching 10% of asking price, almost $10K for a $100,000 house. And that is the thing. It isn't just the property taxes too. Look at like if you're seeing a house, find out how much the homeowner's insurance is. My neighbor next door, all of us were on this row or on Progressive. I chose not to go with Progressive the year prior because they had doubled it. It went from like $1,700 to $3,200 for our homeowners insurance. And I was like, I'm not paying that. I'm going to find somebody else. So I found a different insurance company, ended up being Cajun Underwriters. They ended up staying with Progressive. Now, do you know how much their insurance is? $7,300. A year later is now their homeowners insurance is $7,300. That's going to preclude a lot of people from buying these houses. So price adjustments can happen from that as well. Because if a home buyer that would typically be able to own that house or buy that house, if they pull up how much their homeowners insurance is and how much their property taxes are, they're going to be looking at their bottom line, just like that home builder said, they're monthly payment sensitive. And if they see those continually going up like that, it's gonna detract a lot of people. So price adjustments are going to happen in order for people to be able to afford their homes. So, but I didn't stick with Progressive. I will say that I did Cajun Underwriters.
And Cajun Underwriters is out of Tampa. The irony of that.
Well, I thought it was right here in Louisiana. I learned something new. Meadow NY whatever 1979. I'm sorry, I didn't read your screen name correctly. I sold my Miami house for $550,000, and boy, am I happy. I'm living in North Carolina. No more $1,400 in insurance. That's another thing that a lot of people are saying. Yeah, 14,000. So thank you. That's what a lot of people are saying. The homeowners insurance is making them pack up and go. That happened here. It's happening here in New Orleans. Like a lot of people can't afford the homeowners insurance. Because some people have like little shotgun houses and their mortgage payment was $800. And then all of a sudden it went up to $1,600 just because of the homeowners insurance. Then you have to add flood insurance on top of that. That's a separate policy. And you have to pay that, like upfront for 1 year. And people that don't live in a flood zone, their flood insurance used to be like $550. Now it's like, I think it's over $1,000 now. Even if you don't live in a floodplain, like we're in flood zone X, which means that you aren't required flood insurance. Strongly suggest if you live in South Louisiana, go ahead and get it anyways. If anything, as 2016 taught us, anybody can flood at any time. But yeah, that's $1,000 a month. And so people that are price sensitive, $1,000 is a lot of money, especially when you go from you budgeted for 500, now it's 1,000. So Juicy Fruit says, yikes, 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 fruit stripes. That's one of my favorite expressions. Should I move to Baton Rouge? Rick, what are you thinking? Like, there's a million reasons. Do you have a good job out here? Do you want to move to Baton Rouge because of the good job? Do you really love LSU football? No other place will make you love football like LSU will, because I can't stand football, but I do enjoy watching an LSU game. Love the tailgating. Food is really good. The people are really nice. But there's other reasons why, there's other things. There's pros and cons. We flood, South Louisiana floods. There's areas of Baton Rouge that flood, some that don't. Hurricanes. We do not have we don't have like mass transit, I think there's some buses. I don't know. I've never seen one. We don't have any trains or anything like that. You got to have a car. So if you're looking for that ain't going to work. Rick says, my cats have adopted me. My cats don't even look at me unless it's food time. Yes, 9 cats. I do. I like I said, 6 of them don't belong to me. 3 each for each kid. And they were supposed to have moved out, and they moved out and they came back with their children. Their cats. So now they're all here. And we have one of those little robots in every single room. Debbie Brady, can you tell me what the results are for the poll, please? D. Jack says, nice to see you, by the way. Nice to see you, friend. Question. Okay. I got to say this. When is Kyle coming on? You know what? I haven't talked to Kyle. I got to call him. They're talking about Kyle Seagraves. I don't know if you know who that is, but the channel is called Win the House You Love. And he is the mortgage guru here on YouTube. One of my favorite people on YouTube. I need to have him back on there. Tornado insurance? Well, tornado insurance, like as far as your regular policy, they have like a wind. I don't think they don't call it tornado insurance. It's like wind and it's some other kind of thing. It's part of your policy. I don't know if you can get a separate policy just for tornadoes. I'm not an insurance person, but as far as my insurance works, is that like it says like it has to meet certain credentials and then it'd be a tornado. It's considered tornado damage, wind and hail damage. It's under that umbrella. When a tornado hits, I had a tornado hit our old house and that's what it fell under. The house next to me got a whole new roof. I only needed a section, but yeah. It says, you have to love heat and humidity because it is it is sticky in Louisiana. That is the understatement. The summers are oppressive. From the end of May, June, July, August, September, I don't leave the house. If there's no air conditioning anywhere I'm going, like just the heat radiating off the pavement will melt your skin off. I can't stand it. This girl doesn't like to melt, but it's really good for your skin. It does keep you youthful. The humidity does. Gypsy Girl says, will you guys ever move to another state? Gypsy, that is the goal. Yes, that is the goal. Somewhere much colder. That is the goal, to move to another state. Rick Smith says, if I find a place in Baton Rouge on Zillow, can you help me with it? Sure. Yeah, I can help you with it. Me and my business partner, Darla Bruno, we will help you find something. We can, depend on what you're looking for. It all depends on what you're looking for. We can help you out. Was it Debbie able to pull up the, oh, here we are. Poll results. Debbie says, poll results. 403 of you voted. Fantastic. Housing dead this summer? 41% said yes. 25% said nope. Not sure said 33%. 33% said it's not sure. But 41% of you agree with me. I think it's going to be dead. I think that mortgage interest rates are going to be horrendous. How horrendous? I don't know. Like I heard one alarmist say 10%, but I'm not saying that. I'm not saying 10%. But even if it goes into the 8s, that's going to make people like they're going to be like, you know what? I'm going to take a little breaksy. I'm not getting into this market. Something doesn't feel right, And then you're going to start hearing the mortgage lenders start doing this. You know what? You just date the rate and marry the house, or marry the house and date the rate. If they started on that nonsense, I hate that. Can't stand it. Don't get sucked in by a meme to make your housing decisions. That's for sure. They were all doing it last week. All the mortgage guys were like, you know what? The president take the stock market so that way interest rates will go down, and that way the treasury yield bond market will go down, and that's what's going to make housing more affordable so they can refinance all their debts. And then all of a sudden, what happened? The bond market reacted. And then it started going up, and they were like, just kidding. We're gonna pause those tariffs. Sorry about that. Wasn't expecting that the bond market to react the way it did. Sorry. Just kidding. Just kidding. Yeah. Somebody said in 1980, I remember 12%. I think my parents bought their house in the late 70s. Yeah, they bought theirs. I think it was like 13% or something like that, but that's how much it was. But they also bought the house for like, $15,000 or something, that was a long time ago. Trelta says, Kristina, are you having a 420 show? No, I haven't partaken in that. Is that what you mean by that? A 420 show? Is there a 420 show? I don't Should I do it, Charlton? Are you telling me something? Oh, happy Easter, everybody. Oh, happy Easter. Is the next Easter? Is next Sunday Easter? I think if next Sunday is Easter, I think we all deserve to spend more time with our family, whether you like them or not. Let's just go ahead and spend some time with our families. It's a good time to argue about interest rates.
Happens to also be 420.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if he was meaning something completely different. I didn't know if he was talking about like magic gummy bears or something. I don't know. I know. No, I think everybody should spend time with their family. I hope everybody has a fantastic Easter. If you need to get a hold of me, though, you can go to my website and type in KristinaSmallhorn.com, hit one of the pink buttons, and leave me a message there. If you happen to need a real estate agent, or Rick, you want to get a hold of me, you want to talk about getting a house in Baton Rouge, fill out that form. I'll give you a call this week. We'll talk about your real estate needs. Just hit one of the pink buttons, fill out the form, fill in the little part that you want to, ask your questions. Look right there. Boom. Simple form. Fill it out. We'll have a discussion. We'll have a little chit chat. If you want to share this with your friends and family next week when you're at your Easter party, you can always share this as a podcast, because anything that you've heard today will be on this podcast. Eddie posts this every Monday. It just shows up right here. You just go into Real Estate for Everyone with Kristina Smallhorn, and sure enough, this week's episode will be up there on Monday morning. Everybody, I want to say very special thank you to all of our moderators today that have kept the chat very, very, very respectful. I also want to say thank you to all of you that have kept the chat very respectful. You guys have had some really good comments. You got to hear me rant. Well, I think this summer, the housing market is going to be dead. Eddie, if you would do me a favor, don't play that outro. It's too long. It's annoying. I just want to say goodbye to everybody. Eddie, again, wants to wish everybody a happy Easter. And if if you have any questions till then, go ahead and put it in the comments section below. Thank you, everybody. So long. Farewell. Don't forget, you can leave a message right here, 888-255-0197. Eddie, end the stream. Thank you so much.